You are now listening to the Purple Fox Podcast.
My biological father has been an officer for, I believe, over 30 years. And he's even told me he's grateful that he has not once had to fire his weapon.
Nice.
So he's been trained for years, but he's never actually used it. He's pulled it out. But again, he follows a force of escalation protocol, and he makes sure that the perceived threat is not an actual threat prior to even firing on anybody.
And was this something they taught him, or was this something he just started implementing?
That's something he innately did.
What's going on, everybody? This is Kevin C. Eze, your host of the Purple Fox Podcast. And today we're going to be tackling the subject of Black-owned guns. With me in the foxhole today, I have Dejuan White. He is a Navy veteran from Southern California. And I have Whitley Randall, who is a member of the U.S. Army. She works, she games, and she goes hard. Welcome to the foxhole, you two.
Hello.
Hello. Greetings.
And just so the audience knows, Dejuan's actually calling in from the beach. So if you hear all the beach sounds and the seagulls and stuff, that's what he's doing up there. So we'll work with him on audio as best as possible. So just to start off, to frame the context of this conversation, I wanted to start off with this ABC News article by Kiara Alfonseca entitled "Amir Locke's Death Highlights Perils for Black Gun Owners." Quote, Amir Locke was fatally shot by Minneapolis police officers in an apartment early Wednesday morning as officers were executing a no-knock search warrant. Locke, a legal gun owner, had been sleeping under a blanket on the couch. Body camera footage shows a gun in his hand as he begins to sit up when police begin to approach him. According to the article, many advocates say his case highlights the dangers of legal gun ownership for Black Americans due to racism and implicit bias. Amir Locke, a lawful gun owner, should still be alive, says Brian Strauser, Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. Black men, like all citizens, have the right to keep and bear arms. Black men, like all citizens, have the right to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure. I noticed in that Kauser left out Black women in that equation, but we'll speak on that. The first question I want to ask you two is, what was your initial reaction to this case when you first heard about it? And either one of you can take that.
When I first saw the video, I mean, I heard of it, but I said I want to see the video first of what actually happened and what went down, and it was appalling. But it did not surprise me either on how something, because it's with the training with the police officers, and as well as they're already prepared to do what they're going to do, whether within the quick reaction of using a key fob and going inside the door and kicking the couch and then seeing a gun and, executing him in his sleep. There was no due process. There was no, there's no excuse for what they did, actually.
And Whitley?
I mean, sadly, like he said, it doesn't surprise me at this point. As far as the conclusion of the story and how it played out, it's really, I don't even know how to put it, because every day I just become more and more desensitized to these types of stories coming out, and it overall is just, I really don't know how to put it into words, because it should be surprising and it really should make me feel some type of way. But when I hear these stories, it's like, damn, they got another one, I mean, excuse my French, but
No, yeah,
for sure. That's really just how it feels at this point. And that just makes me more so inclined to be a registered gun owner, just for the simple fact that I have to protect my son. Because, like you said, Black women weren't mentioned in that story, but at the same time, I am a gun owner, and I do have a son that I have to look out for, because as he grows, he's going to be, you know, a registered gun owner as well when he gets older. So it's like, I fear more so for him, and the fact that I am desensitized to it, and that as he grows, I have to desensitize him to this as well, because he's going to be hearing this on a regular basis, and it's just, it's really disheartening.
Right. So when you hear about, for you, Whitley, specifically, when you hear this activist or this advocacy group chairman speak specifically only about Black men, what does that call up in you? Is that like any specific frustration?
Not really frustration, just more, it shows who's being targeted. And it's acknowledging the simple fact that we know this. Like, you kind of don't have to throw it in our faces, but at the same time, it's more so like, are Black men acknowledging this? Are they just kind of sweeping it under the rug and being too desensitized to it to say, yeah, we need to do something about this? That's the way I see it. Like, it doesn't shock me as a female, but at the same time, it just makes me push more so to encourage and educate more Black men to be like, hey, this is something that you really need to be aware of. Like, you need to discuss it, not just discuss it, but be about it, because I'm a person of action first and foremost. And so I'm all for all the discussions every day. But if we don't do something, that's where I become desensitized. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's just some more words going out there, but nothing's being done.
Dejuan, are you able to? Oh yeah, okay, perfect. That's what I was just going to tell you. Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So we see this situation, and we know that there have been so many cases of the like. I'll just cite a few of the most famous. So the Philando Castile case of July 2016 within the same state of Minnesota, actually. I don't know what's going on in that state, but it seems like that's like the epicenter of a lot of this activity. There's the Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker case of March 2020. Breonna Taylor sleeping in her room. Kenneth Walker, same thing, no knock warrant. They come in and guns blazing. They see him with the gun. He fires a warning shot within his own home, protecting his own space with his lawful gun. And they end up killing his girlfriend. Philando Castile gunned down in front of his child and, I believe, girlfriend. And another case, a not so well-known E.J. Bradford case of November 2020 within the state of Alabama. Now, the Bradford case, Bradford, who was mistaken for an active shooter, had a permit to carry a concealed weapon and was armed the night he was shot. He drew his gun in an attempt to protect himself and others during the shooting, a situation that many who argue for gun rights cite as the main reason to carry in the first place. So a lot of times when you get into arguments with people around gun rights, they'll cite that argument as the main reason to carry in the first place. Someone has a gun, the only way to fight a gun is with a gun, which is true in some cases. But then this actually argues to the contrary when it comes to Black individuals with firearms. So my question to you two, and either one of you can start and take this. What are your personal experiences with gun ownership in the U.S.?
I've had quite an experience being a Black gun owner, and just dealing with I can say I can feel comfortable sharing with legal situations and dealing with the legal system. And even within a couple months ago, I had a dispute with my daughter's mother, and I had a falsified statement made on me on me basically trying to get her deported. But the reason I'm mentioning this because of that, the court thought that gave it grounds to take away my guns, and they did, and I had to pay for it. And when it comes down to it, everything was, you know, they got all the information. It was completely false statement that I can't do anything like that. But they made me pay, and they took away my guns, and they put added restrictions on me. So in case I touch a bullet, or if I were to have my guns in possession and the officer would find me, you know, while they're still trying to figure out, then I could get a felony, actually. And it's crazy because it was just, you know, the court had put that on me without no reason. And that was Chula Vista Courthouse. And it was really appalling to me because I said, this here is how so many, you know, there's also, you know, with the police, you know, obviously killing people, but also there's a legal side on how any situation can make you an illegal gun carrier depending on who perceives it.
Right. So they use that situation going on between you and your ex, I believe, right?
Correct.
And they use that as a situation cited to take your firearm?
They did. They did. When I went to court, they had, and that's the thing when you're a registered gun owner. When you're a registered gun owner, all they have, you're already in the system. So they actually had all my serial numbers for all my guns and all that stuff too. You know, and they're asking me, why do I have them? And, you know, stuff like that. And obviously I had to put it, because it was a TRO. They had to get the information to make it final, or whether or not, you know, during that whole process.
Explain what a TRO is for people.
It's a temporary restraining order.
Okay.
Say that you get a dispute and someone makes an accusation against you,
right.
They can, on that order, it's there's a whole section for firearms, and
right.
They put all these limitations on you. So usually those things they get granted if there's like violence or, you know, something on that nature where you need a restraining order.
Right.
But what I was saying is that there was no proof, there's no evidence of any violence or any kind on me. But because I had actually, it was done to me, I was in a you know, I was a victim of domestic violence, and I said, hey, if this situation, you could get in trouble for this. And so they flipped it on me, and they said, oh, well, you're trying to do this and that, and you know, trying to, you know, get her in trouble. And I said, well, how can I get someone in trouble unless they're doing something bad?
Well, and I can see how. And that, because it makes sense that they would have a section like that on the restraining order.
Right.
Because I can see how maybe in some more malignant cases, someone might seek retribution or, you know, that kind of. But I can also see how that can, to your point, be used to enforce some of that bias in terms of Black individuals with guns. So that is.
I agree. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I agree that should be a stipulation, but when I come to find out, it's with the judges at their discretion. And the judges, and that's the same thing with the no-knock warrant, and it's with the judges. If the judges have a racial bias in these cases, it could be something like mine where I didn't do anything wrong and I had a false accusation against me, but now I'm in further trouble because, you know, I didn't get served, you know, the order in time, or I couldn't, you know, whatever the case may be. And, you know, that's really appalling and disturbing. So even if you get stopped and, you know, I got stopped, I could be in a situation trying to turn in my guns to storage saying, hey, you have this order out and you have these here. So now let's take you to jail, even though you're trying to put them away within the, you know, the appointed time. So it's a really tricky situation, you know, being a Black gun owner, period. I advise everyone to read the laws and the rules of, you know, being a gun owner in your state, because
that should be very important.
Constantly.
Yeah, that should be very important, and that is very that is a very clear observation. You know, how the courts take it into their own discretion, and if that bias is already in place, then, you know, I can't see many wins for someone coming in at the whims of the legal system, you know, in those types of situations, because they can just take your guns. And I did not know that was a thing that happens. So thank you for informing us on that. Whitley, do you have any stories on that front as well? Just your general take on being a Black gun owner.
On that specifically, not necessarily. I mean, I I'm lucky to be one of the, I can't say one of the few. I'm lucky to be one of those people that has it in my home at the ready, but has not necessarily had to use it. And maybe it also attributes to me being a female, but I've never had a situation where, you know, I had to be searched, or I had to be, you know, let it be known like, hey, I have my weapon on me. You know, I haven't had anyone come into my home. And even with people that I know personally, I let them know up front when they come to my home, you know, hey, just know that I do have a weapon. You know, I'm not going to let you know where it is, but at the same time, just know that it is readily available in case anything happens, whether someone we don't know comes here or whatever the case may be. But thankfully, I haven't had to be in that situation where, you know, it could have potentially become a bad situation, or I've had to have it taken from me.
So what are the reactions usually when you let them know?
It's mixed.
Okay.
From the older crowd, like say for instance, either of my stepfather or my biological father or my stepmother, you know, it's like, oh really? You know,
Okay.
are you good with it? You know, have you ever had to use it and things like that? It's like, trust me, I know how to actively use my weapon if necessary. I don't keep it loaded because my son is here. You know, and then of course they ask, you know, does your child know? Yes, he knows that I have a weapon. He does not know where it is. And he does know, you know, don't touch it, basically. Like I said, he's still pretty young. Right. So as he gets older, I'll definitely be educating him as he comes of age. So that's not an issue for me at all. Mostly with my friends, people that know, you know, my military experience and whatnot, they kind of just don't question it. I guess it's that innate sense of, you know, she has experience, she knows what she's doing. All right, you know, you got it, cool. They don't ask to see it or anything like that. It's nothing crazy like that, but I keep a very close circle. And so they already know, you know, just don't ask, don't tell type of thing.
Right. And, you know, it's interesting because I wasn't specifically looking for this, but after a while, it became intentional, me having you two on specifically because I know you're both military. So I guess, yeah, that wouldn't be as questioned. You know, it's like, oh, they have that experience. They know how to handle that. I will be interested to get that take from, for those who don't know, I was going to have another guest on who wasn't military at all. But that ended up not working out with the scheduling. But yeah, so it is easier to talk to you two specifically about that and the trust around your proficiency with the firearm. So I guess we don't have to get too much into that.
You know what? Really quick on that though, there is a small section of people that I don't even acknowledge when it comes to my weapon, and that's specifically people that know I'm originally from Compton, and so that already has the stigma of, oh, you've been around gang violence and whatnot and everything like that. Yes, I have. So that's so when it comes to me, you know, having people from that area come back around, whether it's family or friends or whatnot, of course they immediately ask, you know, hey, where is it? Can I see it? Da, 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 da. And I'm just like, no. Yeah. So that can become an issue at times, especially when they assume that, oh, you've got connections and things like that. And that's when it gets kind of annoying because those are the type of people I know they're looking for quality weapons, but at the same time, they're not trying to have them registered, which
what are your
that
intentions?
is where I have a big issue, right? You know, and so that can be kind of tricky to navigate when it comes to certain types of people, especially in the Black community as well.
Right. So what inspired you to make the purchase or even get the training? I mean, you're both military, but like what was it that like I think I want to have one of these. Like this needs to be part of my protection. Like this is what I'm going to use. This is my weapon of choice for protection. What inspired that choice?
What my purchase, I was in the Navy for almost 9 years, and it's something that in the Navy it's a little bit different. I'm not really sure how other branches operate, but I was on a ship, And on the ship, we do quarterly trainings, and we have to make sure we're very proficient. And it's always on a cycle of just training and, you know, and also standing watch and security. And so after I got out of the military, and especially with the pandemic, I said I need to be able to protect myself with many different things that can happen and go on. I need to put these same, you know, plans that I was using in the military in my daily life, because a lot of times when things happen, people, they don't have any type of plan in case they get inside certain situations. And even with the gun ownership, there's a lot of people who don't register guns, you know, and that's a big issue in California, that someone, you know, there's a lot of gun limitations here for registered gun owners, but criminals don't abide by the law. So even with like a 10-round mag, it's still better than not having anything. But if someone has a 100-round drum, there's no way that you can go, but just, you know, there's different, it's a full security, you know, mechanism that you have to instill just being a gun owner. And so when the pandemic happened, I said, okay, I'm definitely going to need to go and to protect myself and my family. Now is definitely the time to buy the firearms before, you know, they started a low supply, a high demand and low supply.
Right.
And
There was a huge, for those who don't know, there was a huge firearm rush somewhere in the middle of 2020, extending into 2021. People were buying firearms left and right. And there was a huge shortage because of the purchasing. Continue.
Yeah, it's a huge shortage, and it was kind of crazy experience going, and that even reassured, you know, I have more than one. It even reassured my purpose going through trying to find ammo, going through all these, you know, different things during the time of the pandemic. Some gun stores were actually shut down because they were considered non-essential, and some gun shops actually fought against the you know, against the state, and they actually sued the sheriff's department for closing them, because what they were doing is they're allowing LE only to purchase from the gun stores and weren't allowing civilians to go and purchase to defend themselves. And that could be a huge, you know, that's very problematic. That's problematic for private businesses that own security firms that need those things. And it's also problematic for the average law-abiding citizen who wants to protect themselves, you know, when someone breaks in their house trying to hurt them or take something of theirs, and, you know, and they can't defend themselves, and they have to wait till the police come and, you know, clean up whatever mess that those people created.
Whitley, you have a response on
that? I'm so sorry. Can you restate the question?
Your inspiration for the purchase, or the training in general.
So my reason for the purchase, not to delve too deeply into that, but basically it was out of fear. And how do I put this? Okay, I don't want it to be anything negative on your podcast, but I purchased a gun.
No, it's cool. You can get real here. It's not.
Okay, yeah. All right. As long as you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I actually purchased a weapon after I was raped at gunpoint. And this was in my latter years of college, actually, from someone who I had considered a friend for over 10 years. Yeah, it was of course, it was a traumatic experience. But after that, I told myself, you know what, that was really scary. And I had a fear of handguns actually for a couple of years after that. So when I did graduate college, and I joined the military specifically to get over that fear.
Right.
And so I figured, you know, go big or go home. And so rather than start small and work my way up to not being afraid of larger weapons, of course, when you get into the military, you're given, you know, semi-automatic rifles to carry around consistently. And so I'm very used to semi-autos because of that. And then once I completed training and everything, I worked my way down. It was a lot easier for me to start heavy and then go down. And then so I finally purchased my first handgun about a year after I was done with training, and I'd settled into my first duty station. And from there, I just, you know, I started a family as well and everything. And I was like, okay, I need to make sure that even with all this training and whatnot, I have a means in my home to take care of my family, especially after having my firstborn. I said, you know what, this is what it is. A hand to hand isn't just not going to cut it. And so I was actually in the state of Alaska, which is a very, open carry state. And so it was a lot easier for me to attain weapon there, and also to get handgun training there as well. And so from there, I've just continued having at least a minimum of 2 to 3 weapons on hand, just in case, because you never know. And of course, if you have someone with you who also knows how to properly utilize a weapon, then there you go. That's someone extra who can help you as well, and someone I can train. So that way there's more than one person in the household who can actively protect the family.
So in a sense, for you, your journey with guns and firearms, is it fair to say that it's almost like a retaking of your power in that way?
Pretty much,
like
yeah.
relearning.
I mean, yeah, because growing up, I was never actually fearful of weapons in general, but it wasn't until that experience in college that I was like, oh wow, like this shit is actually pretty terrifying. Like, and so I was okay with them, and then I was completely not okay with them. And then I had to force myself into a situation where I have to be around them 24/7 and just become used to being around them. Like, just completely take away that fear factor and just be ready at will.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah, of course. Anytime. It should be a much easier conversation to have than it is in general.
It should.
So yeah, I'm very open about those things. It's just, I don't know if other people are.
Right. There's a lot of trauma that can be triggered or brought up, But yeah, thank you for being so forthcoming with that. That's very powerful.
No problem.
So considering the realities around Black gun ownership, what precautions do you take specifically to lessen the risks associated with the racial component?
I've done a lot of research, and I always keep up to date with the laws and different situations that people, like the realities of being a gun owner, period, but then also being a Black gun owner. One thing I found out is that you can actually get it's almost like a prepaid legal, but for gun insurance. So if you get in an altercation, they actually will have the bail money for you, and get you a lawyer in those situations. And that's something that I think a lot of gun owners and also a lot of Black gun owners don't know or even understand the actual responsibility of what happens when you do get into an altercation.
Right. I'm almost certain the vast majority of people don't know about that. What you just described. Yeah.
And with this insurance company that I use, they send me training videos all the time. I can buy targets. They're for helping people become law-abiding citizens and help protect them. So I think they give you like $1 million bail, with your insurance you get in, so it's taken care of. So I do a lot of research and things like that, because after, someone gets in an altercation, they go to jails and they have to figure out what to do next. This company actually kind of walks you through, what you need to do. And it's not just as well as just having the gun, but also having the proper security and knowing, the training, when it is okay to shoot someone and when is it not okay to shoot someone.
Right.
What are the terms to, say when you do go to court? What is the actual threat? And, and what are some things to have and not to have on your firearm? Those are all things that the DA look at when you get into an altercation, and you have to explain, why you chose the action that you did versus them trying to twist it into something else.
Right. And then for you, Whitley?
Can you restate the question?
Just you're like knowing the realities of Black gun ownership, the things you do to kind of mitigate the risk around the racial component, like if you do it all.
I really don't. I mean,
Oh,
if
so yeah,
you,
that's all.
yeah, I don't see I mean, the only racial bias I really see with it is where is the NRA when it comes to cases like that you mentioned at the beginning of this? They want to protect their own, but when it comes to other registered gun owners, such as within the Black or even Latino community, where are you? That's really the only bias I see. And I don't feel like there's much that we can do about it other than, making sure that you're licensed, you're registered and everything, and that you know how to properly wield a weapon. But at the same time, if the people that head these organizations that provide these weapons to us, if they don't do anything to protect us, then what's the point? Because we can be law-abiding citizens all day up and down, but at the end of the day, if push comes to shove and shit hits the fan, where's our protection legally?
Right. The NRA has actually gotten a lot of flack for that in recent years, because they're supposed to be the National Rifle Association, but there's a very clear distinction between who they actually protect,
Exactly.
and many,
so, that's my biggest, I guess, the biggest bias that I notice when it comes to being a registered gun owner. Like, yeah, I want to be law abiding. Yes, I want to make sure I'm doing everything correctly, but at the end of the day, doing it correctly doesn't mean you're still not going to be profiled. You're still not going to be considered, hey, you're holding a weapon, I'm going to shoot you.
Right.
That's not going to protect me from that. That's why the weapon is there, to protect me when you already have this perceived notion that I'm a threat when I'm not.
Right. Dejuan, did you have something else to add to that?
Yeah, I did. I think being in California, because I'm doing a lot of reading. I do a lot of reading, especially with like he was in California, and a lot of the California gun regulations are based off of the actions of him and the Black Panther Party when they were out here. And a lot of people kind of don't understand that is, even with the NRA is kind of just like today's politics. There's two sides of the NRA. It's not just a single side, and so it's kind of crazy. But the thing is that in California, you used to be able to open carry. But when Huey P. Newton challenged that with the law, with the actual law, because there were a lot of Black people at that time that were scared to carry arms. Even though they were free to, they were scared of what may happen if they got caught, or, what may happen during that time. Huey P. Newton challenged that, and then they changed the law for everyone to where you cannot open carry anymore. And, that is the reality of it. And California does a lot of weird gun stuff that, it doesn't necessarily help, especially Black gun owners. It's not really designed the system's not really designed for them to carry like in other states specifically.
Well, that's an interesting segue. So considering Huey P, like you just mentioned, and the situations regarding the Black Panther Party up in Oakland and the atrocities that happened on both sides for the party and the law enforcement up there, to play devil's advocate, what would you say to the cop who, often overworked and underpaid, is called to a shootout and takes the life of someone like an E.J. Bradford in a high-pressure situation? Like, what is your assessment of that kind of situation?
For me, I was in a Navy, and the Navy is federal. There's different rules of engagement, and that's where I stand out on my beliefs, differently, because I was trained different than the police, and the police are training harder on our own citizens, and our soldiers are training on our enemies.
I've heard that argument before. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, we need opportunity, capability, and intent. And then even if I were to take someone's life, then it will be really a thorough investigation that if I made the right decision or not. And if it comes to find out, then I will get completely, I will take the punishment if I was found guilty of a wrongdoing, 100%. There's no immunity or anything like that. And I think it's kind of strange that the police can get immunity for taking another life and continue to work back on a job, So for that officer, he should really think about, if he's scared to, you know, go and to be to serve and protect his country, then maybe he shouldn't do that. Because in the military, they're overworked. That's the number one. Enlisted in the military is the number one stressful job in the United States, period, more so than a police officer.
I can imagine.
Absolutely.
And so they don't go, and even when there are security threats on base where they find drugs and guns and even people trying to go through the gate, the situations are handled a lot differently than they are, you know, in the civilian world, you know, outside the gates. So,
oh no, I mean, and that's, I think that's very apparent because, and it's interesting to me that more people don't make that argument because, you know, people cite local law enforcement as being stressed, but if you think about it, you talk about our military, and they're dealing with foreign relations as well, you know, so they can't be as trigger ready as someone in a domestic situation because because they could potentially trigger a war. That's, you know, what could possibly happen as like the worst case scenario. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Whitley?
Oh no, I 100% agree. Any branch of the military, we have a force of escalation protocol that we have to abide by anytime we engage in any type of combat. And there's steps involved to it. You know, just because you perceive a threat doesn't mean you immediately act on it. That's one of the biggest things. You know, we always have to have eyes alert in general. And that's in life in general. You know, you walk down the street, you make sure you're eyeing the people around you, you know, but just, I think there needs to be a lot of restructuring and retraining if you're going to do that type of position, because there's a lot of bias involved with those perceptions as well. And so that needs to be vetted when even in the military, you know, there's plenty of biases around, but at the end of the day, everybody around us is our brothers in arms. Right. So even if we don't like you, we're still going to protect you. Point blank, period.
That's beautiful.
And so, I mean, it is what it is. That's just part of the family that you join into. It's not just a job. It's a lifestyle at the end of the day. And I believe that with any job or any career that you choose to engage in. And so if you take that position as a police officer, you kind of have to alleviate your biases and your perceptions and alter them for the position that you're in. And so when you have a majority of officers that don't do that, that's where a lot of these issues come into play. And like I said, along with restructuring and retraining, like, I don't even know if the police force in the States even has a force of escalation protocol, just from the way that they're just so trigger happy.
Right.
Like, just because you have a weapon does not mean you have to use it. My biological father has been an officer for, I believe, over 30 years. And he's even told me he's grateful that he has not once had to fire his weapon.
Nice.
So he's been trained for years, but he's never actually used it. He's pulled it out. But again, he follows a force of escalation protocol, and he makes sure that the perceived threat is not an actual threat prior to even firing on anybody.
And was this something they taught him, or was this something he just started implementing?
That's something he innately did.
Nice.
For me, it seems like common sense to do that, you know, but again, not common sense isn't so common in this day and age. So I don't.
That's it.
I'm just gonna leave it.
It's so funny when common sense is a loaded term.
Absolutely. It's really sad right now, but it is what it is.
Okay. So do you consider owning a gun as a Black man or woman its own form of activism, or do you feel called to do any additional outreach or advocacy? Just in terms of like, well, first of all, is that even your stance that like more Black people should own firearms?
Absolutely. As an American citizen, it's our Second Amendment right to bear arms. So, I mean, I'm all for anybody who's sane and able to properly wield a weapon and utilize it for its intended purpose, which is protection.
Right.
I am so grateful to not have to use it on a regular basis. The few times I have had to use it, which again, during my time in the military, it is what it is. You do what you have to do when you have to, but it's not a toy to just wield around or anything like that. But if you are physically able to handle that level of responsibility, And my main thing is hold yourself accountable for your actions. A lot of people, especially in this country, do not like to hold themselves accountable, especially police officers. And so I think accountability plays a huge role in gun ownership as well. Know what you have that weapon for and hold yourself accountable for the consequences if you choose to utilize it in the wrong way.
Right. Well said. Dejuan?
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that I believe everyone who's of the legal age, should be able to legally carry or bear arms. I think it's a sense of not just owning a gun isn't going to save yourself. So you have to do the proper security and training, and I think communities should be working together and ensuring that they can protect their communities. I think that's a really big thing. We can't just wait for the police to come and to take care of our communities if there's a threat or something that's ongoing, especially
That's an interesting
what's
idea.
going on right now with Ukraine and stuff. Not trying to bring up like Red Dawn, but
No. I mean, it's relevant.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah,
It's relevant.
even another. You asked a question before about inspired and what inspired, and I remember seeing a movie called it's called The Day After, and I highly recommend anyone to watch this movie. They don't really show it on the mainstream, but it was mainstream at one time. It's The Day After. It was 1983, I believe. And it's a Cold War era movie about what happens when Russia launched like 300 nuclear warheads at America, and how the communities and people are trying to get help and trying to survive. And it's crazy, and that for sure, you can have someone come on your property and try to take your property and you have nothing to defend yourself with.
Right.
yeah.
And so that's something that, I feel people in general, especially in America, need to be able to protect and survive for themselves. Because in the end, that's all they have. You either choose to live or choose to be taken control of, or whatever they tell you to do.
I really like that idea of communal firearm training. Because I mean, one you're protecting your community, and two, even with that kind of breaks down some of that racial bias. Because most people don't even know who the demographics of the community. So you have this training, and people are coming out to learn how to be proficient with their firearms, and they're seeing Black people with guns, they're seeing Hispanics with guns, they're seeing Asians with guns, and it kind of melts that image away of this person shouldn't have that, and if they do, it's a threat. Because you're working on learning together as a community. So that's a very interesting idea that you brought up. Is that going on anywhere? Is that actively happening in places?
Yes, there's gun groups all over. I mean, you could go to Facebook and type in. There's all different type of gun clubs. I'm in a gun club. I am trying to do something similar here with some family friends. Start out, and just get some training and stuff, and and that's one of the most important things that we can do right now. I feel as just being in America is really train how to protect ourselves in case we get in some type of situation. As long as they're of age to go into, to learn how to do it and not use, the intentions for bad, we should all be doing some type of training to protect ourselves. That would change a lot of statistics. I believe so. So there's gun groups and a gun groups, whenever there's a situation that happens on the news, they always talk about, even, the unjustified killings and stuff like that. Was this person right or wrong, or look at this situation? And those brings a lot of different questions that, that's why I go inside those, the online groups, to see what people are talking about and what are the most upcoming laws, what's going to change. San Diego's, they're putting a new thing now, which I don't know how they're going to enforce it, but they're enforcing everyone to have trigger locks on their guns after February 26th. So it should be installed right now in a San Diego County thing they put there. I don't know what happens if you get caught without having a trigger lock or inside of a safe, but they just made it a law recently.
Interesting.
So
yeah, we'll see.
So there are many different communities, and I tend to stay away. Obviously you don't want to get in nothing crazy like that, but there are legitimate gun clubs.
More fringe sort of gun club, yeah. Yeah. So, and my final question to both of you. So, considering the history around arms within the country, do you at any point envision a future that could fully accept black gun ownership on equal footing with white gun ownership? And if not, why?
I believe it's already happening. I mean, I believe it happened in Texas. I believe it happened recently in Texas with their new laws that they just established. And, we haven't seen anything too crazy, happening in Texas recently, like it's happening in Minneapolis, and I think that's a huge, it's a huge example because, I mean, there are, killings and stuff going on, obviously. But when you have the ability, people can actually have the ability to protect themselves, then it's different. And then someone knowing that, I'm in an area where people are going to protect themselves if they can. That says a different things to criminals too. A criminal's not going to they want easy targets. They don't want a hard target. So I think, in places like Texas, Florida, Kentucky, very pro gun states. I think there is that. Even San Diego, I'll go to the gun range out here, and I have some good conversations with people different than my race, and they help me out with if I need help or training, or it's good.
Nice.
So I believe it's happening now.
And then Whitley, same question to you. Do you envision a future that fully accepts black gun ownership on equal footing as white gun ownership?
I see it. That's a loaded question because I do see it, but at the same time, I don't see it within my lifetime. Maybe my son's. I'm hoping for my sons, absolutely. But because there are so many distinguishing changes occurring at such a quick rate right now, I don't see it being a fully thing because you specified the word fully.
Right.
And so the changes are happening, but in order for change to be complete, it's going to take time. Right. And so that's my thing. I don't see it in my lifetime, but I definitely see it in my son's future or my grandkids' future. Maybe if I'm old enough and I live long enough to see it, I would hope so. But it's not going to happen as quickly as we may hope. There's a lot of other things that are going on in the world right now, especially like Dejuan said, with the Ukraine situation going on right now. There's going to be a lot of significant changes happening here based on what's happening all over, especially with COVID, like you said, shutting down a lot of, people trying to get weapons and whatnot, even just trying to become registered. And so we still need to bounce back from the other things that are occurring before America can really focus on that specific subject and just really, and just really becoming integrated as far as being on an equal playing ground with having white gun owners and other ethnic minority gun owners.
Right.
So it's kind of like for me, let's handle one situation and then move on to the next. Because right now we got
Instead
too much
of taking them all. We're just trying to take all of them on at the same time.
There's way too many things going on right now. Can I just get one problem done?
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you two for coming on. This is a very interesting topic to me. I've been wanting to flesh this conversation out for a while. So it was an honor to have you two on here. You both speak so eloquently on the issue and the matter.
Just out of curiosity, are you a gun owner?
No, actually. And so many people have been telling me to go out and get one.
We need to get you on that, man. You're about to have your own family. Congratulations.
Thank you. I've never even fired one before. I've never had a desire to pull the trigger at all. I've never been to a range either. I think I'll start, if I ever do, I'll start with going to a range just to see how it is. Yeah, that'll be my first move.
You got to start somewhere because with family comes protection, and in this day and age, let's be real. With the stuff happening in Ukraine and just the way things are going right now, you got to start a family. Just know that may be something to highly consider in the near future. That's all I'm saying. And you got people on your side that can help you out.
can I use like a katana? I mean, I'm doing like bow hand training. Like, you know,
I got
can
a
get
couple
like,
of those if you need one.
right? Hey, you know, I like the knives. I do that, the little subtle action stuff. You know.
Hey, you know the phrase, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, man. You never know. You never know. Long range always fares better than short range, that's for sure.
We'll see. My attitudes might soften on it in the coming years. Well, thank you again, you two. This is Kevin C. Eze, your host of the Purple Fox podcast, thanking his guests and signing out.